So this is going to be our third lesson and our final one. We were originally planning on doing a tournament after this, but I don't think we'll have enough involvement. But this is the lesson on rules and strategy. If you have already competed in tournaments, some of this will be redundant, but I'm just covering the rule set initially to be thorough. So for starters, almost every tournament is a double elimination tournament. There are some round robin, but double elimination is the most common. The way to think about this is it's like a bracket, and you are allowed to lose once. So if you make it all the way up into winners finals here, and then you lose, so our boy Polier lost to me here in winners finals, he gets one more chance in losers finals. He won losers finals, and then he faces me again in grand finals. And here he actually reset the bracket, so he beat me. At that point, we both have lost one set, and then he took the final set and won the tournament. But this is the standard format you'll see. And yeah, if you come to any local, this is probably the format you'll face. So for rules, standard tournament rules are 4 stocks in 8 minutes, no items, and no pause. And normally it's a best of 3 or a best of 5. Players, you'll pick your characters, and you can force a double blind pick. It's not super common, but if someone is always counter-picking your character, then you can have a neutral third party who you both tell which character you picked, and then you'll be locked in. And then you rock, paper, scissors generally for stage striking order, which I'll talk about in a sec, and also port priority. Not everyone cares about port priority, but if you do, that's something you can RPS for. Also, I've RPS'd for character color before when I played another Sheik, and we both were a green Sheik. Here are all the legal stages. The key thing to note here is some stages are starters, so you can pick them in the first round, and some stages are reserved only for counter picks. Recently, Pokemon Stadium has been frozen, so it doesn't transform. And with that format, Final Destination is normally a counter pick. It used to be Final Destination was an initial stage, and then Pokemon Stadium was a counter pick. All right, so how does stage striking work? Basically, the first player strikes 1 stage, the other player strikes 2, and then the first player strikes 1 more, which just leaves 1 other stage, and then you play out the match on that stage. For stage bans, in a best of 3, the winning player bans a stage, and then in best of 5, there are no stage bans. And then the only other rule for stage striking and banning is just you cannot pick a stage that you previously won a game on unless you mutually agree to that with your opponent. All right, so for stage picking, here are just some things to consider with picking a stage. The size of the blast zones matters. So there are some stages like Dreamland and FD where most characters will live longer. Just if you're getting hit by a super strong like F Smash on one of these stages, the blast zone is much larger. And then you have stages where it's easier to kill people faster. So like Yoshi's or Pokemon has a small ceiling. So depending on who your character is, these are things you want to consider. Space is another big thing. So you have big stages, lots of room to like dash dance around, like Dreamland, FD, and Pokemon. And then you have stages that are a lot tighter, like Fountain of Dreams or Yoshi's. That's another thing to think about. Classic example is like if I'm playing against a Peach and I don't want to get down smashed a lot, it's nice sometimes to have a little bit more space, but I don't want too much space like Dreamland. So that's just something to think about. And then finally, you have platforms. So depending on your character, depending on the type of movement that you like to do, and also depending on the matchup. So some matchups, you want platforms to be able to escape from certain combos or chain grabs. So that's another consideration. All right, so now we're getting into the actual core strategy of the game, and we need a bit of terminology. So the first thing is distinguishing between the neutral game and punish game. And the neutral game is basically where neither player is severely disadvantaged. So both players are in control of their character. You're moving around. You're like trying to find the initial hit or opening, but you have access to your full moveset. And in Punish game, one player has been hit, normally with the move of some kind, or they might be off stage or something, and they have a restricted set of moves. And then one player is being punished and the other is trying to do the punishing. So these are the two different phases. And you can spend a lot of time focusing on improvement in just one of the two areas. But they're both important. All right, so one thing on strategy in Melee specifically is that you need good execution in order to implement your strategy. And just knowing exactly what to do in a situation is only part of it. You have to be able to also execute the correct thing. And also making mistakes can lead to quick reversals or deaths. So in this example, I'm doing a 9-frame invincible F-tilt out of a ledge dash on the left, which is a super powerful option. But if I mess up the execution on the right, I just die. So that's a good example where it's like I can know that this ledge dash is super powerful and super good, but I have to be able to execute it in order to take advantage of that. So one of the first concepts we're going to go over is the concept of whiff punishing. It's a pretty broad category, and it's mostly anytime your opponent does something that's laggy, where they're unable to move after because they're still in the animation of their previous move. You can punish it if you're close enough. And smash attacks are the most common category. There are also other moves that are laggy, like B moves. So one caveat is normally you need pretty good execution in order to beat this, in order to employ whiff punishing. Like you have to be close enough to grab them before they leave this laggy state. So trying to play like just outside of the range of their moves to get them to whiff a move, and then you can run back in and get a grab or something and punish them. And you also need pretty good execution. So in both of these examples, I'm punishing Marth's F smash. The one on the left is just, I'm kind of dash dancing outside of the range, and then I can just run up and grab them. But the one on the right is a bit harder. I'm getting hit on my shield, and I can wave dash out of shield and grab the Marth before they have a chance to escape. But that requires being able to wave dash out of shield, waiting the right amount of time for the shield stun to be over, for me to be able to act and get the grab. But anyways, whiff punishing is a super valuable tool. All right, so now we're going to talk about a couple different ways of approaching. The first type, I called it normal. I haven't heard other people refer to this as a normal approach, but it's just not overshooting or undershooting your approach. And I would describe this as just aiming exactly where your opponent currently is at the time you're deciding to like use the attack. So this is really only good for catching a player who's not moving. Like your opponent has done something like an F-tilt in this example where they're just not moving at all. I think this is a common pitfall for new players where they find themselves really often just aiming exactly where the opponent just was. But Melee is super fast and your opponent has a lot of tools to move around quickly. So I think for most players, probably doing less of the normal approach and more overshooting and undershooting is beneficial strategically. And the problem with normal attacks is they also can be abused. So if I know you're going to just aim where I'm currently standing, I can normally dash back and then whiff punish or landing lag. Overshooting is a tool where you are predicting your opponent is going to dash back or move away from you. And it's a bit committal. So it's kind of, you're reading that your opponent is going to do this thing. And it's very timing and spacing dependent. So you can even correctly read that your opponent is going to run away. But if you don't get the correct timing and spacing, you might still whiff the overshoot. All that being said, overshoots are a really powerful technique. But it can lose, like if your opponent knows that you're going to overshoot, they can just approach and stuff your approach before you even have the chance to like reach your final target. And then undershooting is just aiming in front of your opponent. So this is just reading your opponent's going to come in. This can include like an in-place aerial, like in this example, or just drifting slightly forward. It's normally a bit lower risk because you're not like hard committing that your opponent is going to run away from you. If they don't run forward and you're wrong, often you won't be punished. But if someone knows that you have a habit of doing this, there are still ways for your opponent to punish this. So the important thing here to consider is just when you're approaching your opponent, play around with these different strategies. Like, see how far you can overshoot, practice undershooting, and see like when does it work, when does it not work, and just kind of mix it up and see what feels good. So there's also this concept in Melee of RPS situations from rock, paper, scissors, where there's an option that beats another option that beats another option, and it's like this circle. So the classic example is shielding, attacking, and grabbing. The example on the left, I, the Sheik, am F-tilting this Captain Falcon who's trying to grab me, right? But if the Captain Falcon knows I'm going to run up an F-tilt, they can shield, and then they can shield grab me out of it and beat that. But if I know that he's going to do that, if I know Captain Falcon's going to shield, I can just run up and grab him. So there's this intrinsic sort of game theory thing where there's always an option that beats your option. And so you have to be thoughtful about when you play certain mix-ups and situations. Because these can kind of boil down into something like a 50-50 where there's like, if my opponent shields, I win. If my opponent doesn't shield, I lose. Or something else like that. And this is super common in Melee. There are a ton of different interactions where it's this kind of RPS situation. And it's just something you need to be aware of. You need to be aware of what your opponent's options are and think about them when you're coming up with your move selection. So I've mentioned reads a little bit, but there are two categories of kind of punishing your opponent. And the first is purely reads based, and reads are just punishing based on a prediction. So you are committing fully that your opponent is going to pick some option. In the clip here, you have Mango predicting that Jigglypuff is going to roll and fully charging an F smash and getting a kill for it. And reads are really nice because it allows you to do something like charge an up smash. Because normally that's a move that you can't just charge in neutral and like hope that your opponent is going to run into you. But here, in this specific situation, many players, when shield pressured, will roll towards the center. So it was an intelligent read, and it's super high reward if you read correctly. The only downside is if you're wrong on the read, sometimes it's a missed opportunity. So that leads us to reactions. There are some situations that you can, strictly based on the animation, you can react to everything going on and continually punish your opponent. So Wizrobe is like the king of this. In this clip, he's reaction tech chasing Ginger. And this is very difficult to do. That's the main drawback with reactions, is being able to react is dependent on your reaction time. Not everything is even reactable. And your reaction time is also like a fickle thing. Like if you don't sleep well, your reaction time is affected. Depending on what food you eat, your reaction time is affected. So depending on your reaction times and your diet even, and like your lifestyle choices, your reaction time may be less reliable than going for reads. The other thing is if you commit to reacting and you're too slow, you might get punished. So both reads and reactions have trade-offs, and they're worth considering. And there are successful players who use both of these techniques. So that leads to tech chasing, and I'm not going to go super in-depth on this, but it's basically, like in the clip we saw, characters have specific tech animations that you can react to, and depending on your character, you probably have a tool to punish them on reaction. So some characters, like a Sheik or a Captain Falcon, can get a regrab off tech rollaways. So that allows them to cover literally every tech option on reaction. But you can also react and use a more powerful move, like a Fox might tech chase into an up smash. So tech chasing is just reacting to this teching animation. And another thing to think about is on platforms, often the set of options are a bit reduced because they have a limited space. So maybe a tech roll and a tech in place will result in the character being in the same spot. So sometimes you can go for like a pseudo read where you're just covering 2 of the 3 tech options with a single move. because the character is like either near a ledge or they're on a platform. So that's something to think about. All right, so now we're on to mix-ups, and mix-ups is a super broad, all-encompassing term. I've already used it a little bit in this talk, but a mix-up is basically just changing the pattern of play in a way that could trap your opponent. I like to think about it as mostly being unpredictable, but really strong mix-ups also take advantage of like knowing what your opponent thinks you're going to do, and then the option that you actually select will punish them for that. So in the first example, I think just the general term mix-ups means you can play the exact same situation. So like in this clip on the bottom left, there's a Marth that's shielding, right? And I as Sheik have a bunch of different ways I can approach this. Some of them might work against a shield grab, for example, and some of them might get me punished. But the Marth can't possibly react to every possible thing that I can do. So it's powerful to just do different things that require a different response from your opponent. That leads us to timing mix-ups. So in addition to doing like having a completely different moveset or doing a different option, you can also just vary the timing of the exact same move. So this is the exact same Sheik F-tilt, and I'm just doing two different timings on a knee from Captain Falcon. So the first is with a fastfall, which loses to this F-tilt, and the second is just no fastfall, which whiffs, and then my knee connects, and the Sheik is dead. So timing mix-ups are super powerful, and there are a lot of things you can do to mix up your timings. So I mentioned aerials here, but you can do this with any move. So it's just the time that you initiate your aerial, you can adjust that. You can adjust the fast fall timing. You can choose to fast fall or not fast fall. Full hopping versus short hopping can result in a different timing of your attack. So it's a super powerful tool to just make yourself a bit less predictable. And if you're using a lot of short hop fast fall aerials initially, then no fast fall is a really powerful mix-up because your opponent is probably not expecting it. Last thing to talk about for mix-ups is just recovery mix-ups. So a lot of new players will recover in the same way every time. And if I know exactly how you're going to recover, it's much easier for me to edgeguard you. But most characters have a variety of different recovery options. So like in this example, Fox can side B, can up B, can air dodge onto stage. So there are just a bunch of different ways to make it more difficult and more demanding on the Sheik to actually punish me. And mix-ups are what just increase your likelihood of recovering. Timing, and these all are connected too. So you can combine doing a different moveset with a new timing. You can do different timing on your recovery. You can also mess around with like the spacing of your moves. It's just keeping yourself unpredictable makes it harder for your opponent to punish you. All right, so new topic is going to be defensive DI. I think typically people talk about just combo DI and survival DI, but I've also included ambiguous DI in here. The main idea is, depending on the situation, you can use directional influence to live longer. And combo DI is when your opponent is hitting you with a move. Sorry, this clip shows both combo DI and survival DI. But if you get hit by a really strong move and you're just trying to survive and not get hit off the blast zone, then you normally want to DI perpendicular to the direction that it's sending you. You don't want to DI in the opposite direction. So like if they're sending you straight up, you don't want to DI down, you want to DI to the left or right. And in this clip right here, if they're sending you to the right, you want to DI up or down. Combo DI is about escaping your opponent's ability to hit you multiple times in a row. So if you DI certain moves down and away, it can be harder for people to follow up on you. And it depends on the combo tool and the exact percent and everything. And actually, DI is another form of a mix-up. Your opponent can mix up their moves to trick your DI and like get you to DI really far away for survival DI. And then they'll hit you with a move that will just kill you instantly. So they can mix up between hitting you with something where you should combo DI or survival DI and make it difficult for you to know which one to use. And then ambiguous DI is a concept where this is typically when you're getting chain grabbed or tech chased. But you can DI such that it's ambiguous to the tech chaser which side of you you're on. So like in this example, is Fox going to land in front or behind Sheik? And it's actually not super clear. And especially with the number of frames Sheik has here to react, it becomes really difficult. So at a minimum, Sheik needs to do some additional things in order to cover this. Like she needs to wave dash and position herself, which just makes the execution more difficult. But often you're just making the execution harder because Sheik has to decide whether or not to turn around. And it's just another survival tool that makes it a bit more difficult for your opponent to hit you. So this slide is discussing the concept of making committal decisions. And a commitment in Melee is often a slow or laggy move. And the main thing to think about is there are positions where like you just want to kill your opponent and you could, throw out an F smash or throw out a really powerful move and kill your opponent. If like they don't shield, for example. But the problem with that approach is often you'll get reversal. So the first clip here, I was actually playing Hex Money and I'm advantaged here. I get a grab and then I read two of the tech options with the down smash. So if they tech in place or they tech roll towards the ledge, that down smash covers both of the options. But here they picked the one other option and they killed me for it. So that's a good example where this down smash was highly committal. And instead of down smashing, I could have either like committed to reaction tech chasing, or I could have used another move like an F tilt to cover that ledge option. And I would be actionable a lot sooner and probably wouldn't have gotten back aired here. A lower commitment example was this clip to the right where I had Bobby Big Balls in the corner. And instead of committing to using a move, I just kept him in the corner with empty movement. So I did some empty hops. And if he tries to jump out, I'm going to be able to hit him with a move. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm not rushing this situation. I'm super advantaged. I don't need to like go for a grab or a down smash here. I'm just keeping him pressured in the corner. And here it pays off. So execution testing is a tool where you may know that something theoretically is like a safe option. Like ledge dashing is an example where if you hit the perfect ledge dash, you're invincible and they can't hit you. But execution in Melee is really hard. And there are a lot of ways for people to mess up. And execution testing is just basically gut checking your opponent and verifying that they can, in fact, do that tech. It's a really powerful tool because it also makes your opponent think more about their options. So if they're not super confident in their ledge dashes, by execution testing, you might actually trigger them to fail a ledge dash that they otherwise would hit normally. And in this clip, I'm getting execution tested and I die. I'm trying to ledge dash and this Fox charges up smash and I fall right into it because I accidentally tournament winner. I think execution testing is important to mix in, but it shouldn't be the core of your game plan. As soon as your opponent demonstrates that, they can't execute that thing, like if you're trying to shield grab all of their aerials, and they're escaping each time, then it's probably not a reliable strategy to keep using. And also there is a downside. Like if you execution test and you're wrong, normally you get punished. Normally there's a reason why it's called an execution test, because if the execution is good, then they're going to at least escape, or worse, they might punish you. But yeah, I still think it's worth mixing into your gameplay sometimes, and especially at lower levels, if you're playing someone who's newer or less experienced, it's definitely worth testing their execution to see if they can do it. All right, so now we're on to the concept of stray hits versus combo starters. I think the main thing to think about is this quote here, that not all hits are created equal. And if you watch a set between two amateur players, they'll spend a huge amount of neutral hitting each other with like one hit moves. Like they'll hit someone once and then it will reset to neutral. And they'll slowly rack up damage and then eventually they'll get their kill at the very end. But it's pretty rare for them to get an extended combo. And most of the time, they're reliant on just racking up damage. But if you watch a pro player, they almost all of their openings result in some kind of combo and often a kill. So the number of openings required to get a kill is a lot lower for pro players. And I think it's important to think about, well, like, why do amateur players, why are they so bad at getting combos? And it's mostly because the set of moves that you want to use to combo is actually really complicated. It's a function of all these different variables, like your character, their percentage, the stage you're on, exactly where they are on the stage, all this stuff, right? Their DI. And the set of moves that you want to use is going to change depending on all of these things. And it's just a lot of information to have. So most new players just don't know like what move is going to be a good combo starter at this percent on this stage. And that's something that just comes with time, but it is something to think about. Like if you're hitting someone with a bunch of stray hits, if you knew the combo starters, then maybe that stray hit would have been a combo instead. Maybe it would have been harder to get, but at least your opening would result in more. So combo starters are super valuable. It's something to think about for any game plan. You want to think about like, how am I going to actually, how am I going to get a kill beyond just winning neutral more times than my opponent? And knowing how to start a combo is kind of the key difference. All right, I think I missed a slide here. One sec. I thought I had a slide on conditioning. All right, well, maybe I'll show that after. Okay, so I'll wrap up with so tips for improvement. So I think most top players say that the key recipe for improvement is a combination of solo practice, VOD analysis, both of your own games and of pro play, and then playing competitively. And it's really a more balanced mixture than I think most people will actually do in their training. Like most people will either way overemphasize just playing or overemphasize just practice. All of them are kind of needed to find areas for improvement, to devise a good game plan, and to improve. I strongly recommend you solo main, especially as a new player. There are so many things you have to learn with each individual character. And as I said before with combo starters, like for your individual character, there's going to be a unique set of combo starters and a unique way you play each matchup. So when you're splitting your time with another character, it's a lot harder to learn all the other aspects of the game because you're still going to be focusing on like some of the more basic stuff with each character. So definitely practice your execution with the character. You should be comfortable shuffling and moving around the stage. You should know bread and butter combos for your character. So each character is going to have a series of like very common openers. So for Sheik, it's like F tilt fair is a really common combo, and for Fox, maybe it's up throw up air, and Falcon stomp knee. Anyways, for each character, know like your combos and be proficient at them. Practice your punish specifically off situations that are repeatable. So those are going to be like getting a grab, putting your opponent in a knockdown state, and or potentially like an opener, one of those combo starters that we were talking about. Develop a game plan for each matchup, for each of the major ones. And you don't have to do this on your own. You can also just steal top player game plans. And even if you have a top player game plan, right, you're not a top player, so it's going to take time to like actually start executing it and stick to the game plan. But it's really, really helpful to have like a well-articulated strategy for each of the main matchups that you want to work on. Finding a group of other motivated players is helpful. Really nice for feedback. Like if you're playing with people who don't give you feedback, you will learn a lot faster if you play with people who do give you feedback. So that's huge. Coaching. I've had a few coaches through the years and it's been super helpful. They're nice for teaching you like things you aren't even thinking about, or you may be like overly fixated on one aspect of your gameplay, and a coach can help you sort of open your eyes to other weaknesses or areas that you could work on. Definitely attend tournaments, either net play or local tournaments. It's just a good way to meet people and also to like test your improvement. And definitely the fun thing is not even a joke. Like if you're not enjoying the game, take a break. If you're having fun comboing people, like, and people say that the way you're doing it is lame or whatever, if you're having fun and it keeps you playing the game, then that's awesome. And there are like so many different ways to play the game, so don't feel constrained to like a single way of playing. And here's some links. There's some beginner tournaments that are specifically aimed at people who are new to the game or go like 0-2 or 1-2 in a tournament. And that was it. Let me see if I can find the conditioning